I think it's important to read out what the motion is. That given that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, alliance has made an immeasurable contribution to peace, security, and prosperity for all its members, the House call on the government to increase spending on national defence to at least 2% of Canada's gross domestic product, in accordance with NATO's 2014 Wales Summit declaration. So, for the folks watching out there today, why would we put the motion forward? Well, it's because it simply isn't getting done, Madam Speaker. I'm going to focus my arguments on Arctic sovereignty and security. And the reason why I do that, I think we need to understand in Canada that Putin has actually made aggressive moves even to our own country. He's made claims to the Arctic seabed that adds just under 1 million square kilometers to his already existing claim. And it's concerning to us as a nation, but it's concerning especially to our residents in the Arctic and frankly, our allies as well. So the threat is real. We've seen Putin deliver on that threat with Crimea and Ukraine, and he's very capable of delivering it on others as well. So I'll start off my arguments based on what are the experts saying. We hear from the Liberals, we hear rhetoric, but we also hear some good comments too from members that have been on the committee for many years that give an accurate assessment, and I commend them for that. So I'll start off, first article says, Canadian forces in desperate need of new spending, procurement, follow through, necessary, experts say. This is an article posted April 2nd, 2022, very recent. So Dave Perry, president of the Independent Foreign Policy and Defense think tank, his comments. Perry said, the image of the military used to be one of focused on peacekeeping, but the direction the forces are supposed to take is less clear now. After that, Perry said the first step would be for government to actually make a decision about whether or not spending the money is a priority or not. And lastly, he says, I don't think there's been much evidence that it has been for this government. And so, Madam Speaker, that's all we're asking tonight or this afternoon is to bring that spending up to that 2% commitment, that promise, especially considering that threat that's very real in our north, especially in the Arctic. But I think I'll go, it's one thing for us to have a rhetorical battle here in the House of Commons, but I'm going to speak to what some leaders in the Arctic are actually saying about their concerns around their own security and sovereignty. So Northwest Territory Premier Carolyn Cochrane said, this is another article recently, March 24th of 2022, said Russia's aggressive action should serve as a wake-up call to shore up safety and resiliency in the north. Quote, now with Russia invading Ukraine, it does show that we are vulnerable, she said. We need to make sure that we have the structures, the infrastructure in place, the services in place, so that our people can not only thrive, but that we can maintain Arctic sovereignty. So here's a leader of one of our territories very concerned about this. I'll go to a mayor up in the Arctic as well, Clarence Wood, who's the mayor of Inuvik. He says he's not worried for the safety of the people living in Inuvik right now, but he also thinks locals should be foolish not to be worried about Arctic sovereignty in light of current events. Quote, Russia has ambitions, he said. They've always had ambitions in the Arctic. And with the expansion of their military to the Arctic regions, it puts us even closer. So yeah, I'd say we have concerns. We have very limited military presence, and I don't think it would take the Russians very long to go through here if they put their mind to it. So again, here's a mayor on the front lines in the Arctic having concerns, and obviously represents the people of his region. I've heard it. I've been at several Arctic conferences now, and that's a common comment that I hear from residents, is that, again, this is their front yard, and they're seeing that potential threat coming across the Arctic and across the North Pole. I'm going to go on, and I know time's limited, Madam Speaker. It always is in this place. But I think speaking to the motion and what's actually being done, I think 2% is an aspirational goal. Obviously, it's something that it's been aspired to by previous governments. But it's something, it's one thing to aspire to it in word, but to aspire to it in actual delivery. So, it's one thing to say and make big promises, is what I'm getting at, Madam Speaker. It's one thing to make big promises that, hey, we're going to do this, but not deliver. So an example of that is in the estimates around Arctic sovereignty. We see comments from this government, again, talking big. And I will say about what the member from Saskatchewan had said before. It was accused that, our former Prime Minister Harper had talked to Putin and really hadn't done anything either. But at least we had a Prime Minister that would stand up to him, and aggressively so. And he understood the threats to Ukraine and other nations around Russia, and spoke to Putin in a way that he needed to be spoken to. And I think our country wishes that our Prime Minister would do similar, but that just isn't happening. So, again, getting back to what the delivery is. So getting back to the estimates I had mentioned. So we had looked about what is this government actually spending on this. And we know the commitments of NORAD. We've heard from many experts, billions are necessary to upgrade our northern defense system. This government's only committed $163 million as of last year to even try an attempt to fix the system. So we hear General Van Herk as an example, leader of NORAD, when he says that billions are necessary to upgrade the system in the north to get it to the standards of 2022 and beyond. To me, it's just not delivering. So I'm going to go to speak to, again, it's an article by the Macdonald-Laurier Institute on the Arctic Watch. Why do we need to protect Canada's sovereignty and security in the far north? That's the article. So, quote, the Liberal government, right before 2021 federal election, issued a joint statement with the Biden administration on the need to modernize NORAD, but there are no timelines, financial commitments, or shopping list of desired capabilities. The statement acknowledges Arctic geopolitical competition, the impact of climate change and advances in conventional missile threats, the Russian hypersonic missiles is the example, and leaves it open to both parties what those capabilities can be. But the whole premise of why we're here tonight, Madam Speaker, is it's necessary, but it's simply not being delivered. And I think we can agree, probably members from both sides, all we want to see is this stuff delivered. We want to see boats in water. We want to see defensive capabilities actually purchased and acquired and the procurement process fixed. We want to I think we want to get this thing fixed. We just don't want to have an argument where we poke each other in the eye. I think we really do want to get this across the line. So I hope the budget is coming up this week, Madam Speaker. This is a call deliberately ahead of that so they can make some good decisions so the money is put into the budget. And our wish list, Madam Speaker, is that it actually gets done. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I agree almost entirely with the member's speech. I'm also against eye poking. Generally, people end up blind when they're eye poking, and in this particular file, it's not a good idea to be blind. The early warning system is massively expensive. It also has yet to be invented. Bits and pieces are invented, and it's extremely difficult to see where this is going. All I do know is that this is going to cost literally billions of dollars, and as General O'Shaughnessy would say, I can't defend what I can't see. So I'm asking the honourable member to cut the government a little slack on this. I think he shouldn't be cutting the government a little slack on some of the other procurements, though. So I'd be interested in his thoughts as to where we move first, because we need to up the game.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Thanks to the member across the way for the question. I think, it's that whole fail to plan to fail analogy, but I'd say even going back to a former president, President Kennedy, there wasn't the infrastructure to go to the moon at the time where he made the call to say we're going to get there. But he made the call to say we're going to get there. And I think we need to at least have the leadership really from the entire House to say that we need to get there. Let's find out what we need, in terms of procurement. I've heard firsthand the problems with some procurement, some of the never-ending plan changes that a shipbuilder can never keep up to the changes from the bureaucracy and different ministries around that stuff. But I think we need to set the course to get there and set a timeline to do it too, rather than just pontificate in the clouds about some aspirational goal that we'll get there someday. I think we need to set a timeline, back it up with the funds that are expected, that 2% being part of that, and then we'll get there. Thanks.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member Longueuil Saint-Hubert. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I agree with the substance of what my colleague said, but I'm a little bit worried about the spending because we've been here for weeks, and the Conservative government, or rather the Conservatives have said that the Liberal government is spending too much. But now they want to go to 2%, whereas we need funding for seniors, for health transfers. We should invest in housing. So where are we going to get the money? Because money doesn't grow on trees. So what does my colleague think is more important, tanks or social housing?
Yeah, thank you from a member from Quebec for that question. Money doesn't grow on trees in Quebec, nor does it anywhere else in our country or anywhere for that matter. We know it's a very expensive endeavor to do this, but I think what's an accurate response, the government is spending a lot of money, indeed it is, but is it spending it in the right direction? And I think that's a huge question mark, and we would disagree on how they're spending money. It's one thing to throw the money at a problem, but to do it in the proper way to get things done, that needs to be done efficiently with a proper procurement process and with the right target set and the right timelines. And that's where I think we differ from the government across the way.
Time for a brief question. The Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Just following up in that vein, I mean, we did hear just last week, I think it was, we were debating a Conservative motion that called for no new taxes and a return to balance. And today we're talking about a motion that would represent about $30 billion, give or take, in new spending. So I'm just wondering, we often hear from Conservatives, I know he says we'd spend differently, but I mean, where is the $30 billion worth of spending that he thinks ought to be cut in order to make room for these priorities? I would just mention while I'm on my feet, Madam Chair, I was part of a foreign affairs study in 2019 of Canadian sovereignty in the North. I know some members have been looking for examples of where New Democrats think we could spend on military spending. That report, which was a unanimous report, is a great place to start.
A brief answer from the member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Yeah, thank you to the member for the question. I have read that report, and it's 28 recommendations, and it's a great report, a place to start and to really build our defenses. But I'll go back to the NDP premise. I think today has been all about, there's priorities for money, and other things are important. And I do agree with the member. Things are important, but I can tell you one thing: if we can't defend our own borders and our own country and our own people, and where premiers are asking to be defended in the North, if we can't do that starting, I think then the rest, the rest, I don't know where it's going to be if somebody else decides to actually set up their shop on our shores. And I would say that's where I think we need to spend the money.